skipped the second.
Yeah, should
my
we?
microphone in my lap.
Yeah, should we skip the "How are you" part, or do you want to tell the story again?
No, it was too long. It was a long story about how my baby was poking me with his razor toenail all night long. So I'm very tired and I didn't sleep very well. That's the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah. And yes,
Hanna is
she cut
raring to
his
go.
toenails.
Yeah, I cut his
For
toenails
everyone
this
that's
morning.
asking right now. So tonight should go better.
Look, knock on wood. How are you?
Also Cliff Notes. I'm weird, which I always am towards the end of my period because I rest while I do, which makes my period experience way better. But then also I get this pent up energy because I don't work out and rest. So then after 3 days, I'm like, can't wait for tomorrow. Gonna do all the sportly activity. Okay, let's get into the topic.
What are we talking about today?
He told me recently about, you traveled for, what was it, 2 nights without your son?
3.
And everyone kept asking you, are you okay? And you said to me, you were thinking like, yeah. But having a hard time, like, okay, what do I say? Should I feel not okay?
Yeah, I had a lot of people being like, how's mama doing? Like, and it was very sweet, right? Like,
Yes.
everyone was very cute because they were like, oh, is this the first time you've been away from him? And it wasn't the first time I'd spent a night away from him, but I think I had only spent 1 night, maybe 2 away from him before that. And those were separate occasions.
Mm-hmm.
So this was the first time I'd spent more than 1 night in a row away from him, which I was nervous about, but not because I was going to miss the baby, just because of how our sleep routine is set up. And so I was nervous for the people who were going to be spending the nights with him.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I got all this like, how are you? Are you okay? How's it going? How's being away from him? And the expectation was there that I would be like, oh, it's so hard. I miss him so much.
Yeah.
And I did miss him. Like, I missed him. But I was also just like doing life. And like, I was traveling and I was going to a wedding and I was like, I just was having a weekend.
Yeah.
And I have this thought every now and then where I'm like, am I supposed to love him more? Like, am I supposed to feel differently about this child than I do? Am I supposed to... Is there something that I'm not enough? And
do you... Sorry, no, keep going.
No.
Well, when you said that, I was wondering, do you... how do I say this? We were talking about, I missed him, and I was also okay. And then you said, am I supposed to love him more? And my head was like, well, one doesn't have to do with the other. So then the question form that I'm having difficulty articulating, are you, like, does it have to mean because you're not a puddle of tears that you don't love him? Like,
no. It obviously doesn't. And it still feels connected. And it's not just this is just an example of it, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
um I don't know, there's this idea that mothers in particular are obsessed with their babies and cannot get enough of being around their babies, and like can't stand to be away from them and want to talk about them all the time. And um yeah, this like obsession.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that I've always conceived of that obsession is that it just happens to you.
Mm. Like it's a given.
Right.
Okay.
And I talked about this in, I don't remember if it was the birth story, but it was in something around giving birth. It's like that magical moment when you have a baby and you're already in love with them,
Uh-huh.
right? Like the baby comes out and you are overcome with love and I guess this like obsession, the idea of this obsession, I'm going to overuse that word, so I'm sorry, but um like just being overcome and overwhelmed with this deep and big emotion
Mm-hmm.
for the little tiny child in your arms. And I didn't have like a magical moment where I was overwhelmed with that emotion, right? Like I have a lot of emotion around my son, but it came on slowly and it came on in small moments. And
Yeah.
I don't know. Obviously, I feel very vulnerable about this.
Yeah.
Um, but that's why I wanted to talk about it, because I don't believe that I don't love my son enough.
Yeah.
But I also can't honestly buy into a lot of the narrative around moms and their babies and moms and their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had conversations with friends and some family members that are like, yeah, it's fine, you're good. But I don't know. I still feel a little self-conscious about it. So when people asked me if I missed my baby or if I was doing okay, I'd be like, yeah, I miss him, but I'm okay, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that I'm perpetuating the same narrative, right? And
Yeah.
that's okay because I don't need to like shut those people down in conversation. But because, you know, again, and I say this often as well, like people are trying to connect with me in that moment, right? It's not
Yeah.
about the actual question. They're trying to connect with me. And so I think engaging with that connection and also being honest is a hard thing to do 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. And I think this isn't any kind of huge revelation. There's a lot of misconceptions around motherhood and a lot of misconceptions around parenting and
And
babies.
expectations.
Right. And expectations versus reality and what we talk to people about versus what's actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
But this one has taken up a good amount of brain space for me.
Right.
Because one of the things that you're supposed to look out for in, you know, the first 6 months after you have a baby is postpartum depression, postpartum mood disorders. And one of the indications of that and the symptoms of that is feeling disconnected from your child.
Yeah.
And so I had a lot of moments where I went, well, I don't feel like how I've experienced depression before. I don't feel like otherwise out of sorts, but I also don't feel this like magical bond with my baby. And is that maybe an indication that there's something wrong? And there was nothing wrong.
Yeah.
I just had...
Not the movie experience.
What's that?
Not the movie narrative experience.
Yeah. The movie narrative experience. Yeah.
You like how I phrased that?
I loved how you phrased that. And my birth wasn't the movie narrative experience either.
Yeah.
Or I guess, I'm not gonna lie, my birth was a version of a movie narrative experience.
I was thinking that when you said that. I was like, it's like that's how my magical movies play out in my head, how your birth was.
But also, like, the actual experience of my birth, it would have made a beautiful video.
Yeah.
And it was a positive experience.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also shit in parts. Like, it was also not great in certain aspects and certain parts of it.
Sounds like a real life experience to me.
Right, exactly. So that's more what I'm getting at. Like,
yeah.
Yes, I have a deep love and sense of awe around my child.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not obsessed with him. And it's hard to leave him at daycare, which he recently started daycare full time, which is no longer in our house, which is different and new and exciting.
Yeah, tell us about that.
I certainly will. And that was difficult, but I think more because of the choices around where to send him and the responsibilities of what he will be experiencing during the day.
Mm-hmm.
As a result of the choices that we make. Like, it felt like more of a responsibility decision than it felt like a difficult to be away from him decision.
Yeah.
And again, that was also because I have already been working for a long time, and he's already been in someone else's care throughout the day for a long time.
Yeah.
So I think that adjustment was different than it would have been if I had gone from being at home with him full time to sending him to daycare.
Right.
One day to the next. It was a very gradual transition, which made that also less of a big deal. Which are also questions I'm getting now, right? Like, oh my gosh, he started daycare. How is that going? How you doing, mama? And it's all very sweet, but there's this expectation that I am not okay.
Yeah.
Which is good on the one hand because you don't want to expect people to be okay. I don't know. It's
nice that they're checking in.
It's great that they're checking in. It's wonderful that people care how I am. It's absolutely marvelous. And the way that those questions are asked is often with the expectation that I'll answer in a certain way.
Yeah.
I don't know. And because this is already something I'm thinking about, it just hits different, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So I feel like there's a lot of ways I'm supposed to feel about my child. And that seems like a setup for failure.
Yeah. I was just thinking how it's so nuanced. So tell me what you think about this. I was thinking okay, so if there wasn't an expectation, if there wasn't a certain narrative in people's heads, how would the question be? Because like I'm thinking it's very considerate that they're asking, like they know what's going on in their life and they're just like objectively they're just asking about what's happening in your life. The where this expectation comes in is how they ask it. So I was thinking objectively the question would be the same. How are you doing? And it's just this slight change in like, how you doing, mama? Like this one added word and like the tonation. How do you say that?
Intonation.
Intonation of how they say that. That gives the information that they are expecting a certain answer, that they have a certain picture, that they're like, oh, she probably is this. Is
Right.
like,
Yeah,
struggling.
Well, you're absolutely right. And it's always in these subtleties that this like connotative information comes through. Which is why it's hard to have conversations around social constructs, because so much is communicated that is not in words, right?
Yeah.
Like you can say something one way and have it be a very innocuous thing, and you can say something another way and have it be completely offensive and a problem.
Yeah.
But they're the same words.
Yeah.
Right? So you're absolutely right. And I don't say this to complain about the people asking the questions. I think for me, it's more about navigating the narrative around being a mom versus what it's really like to be a mom for me.
Yeah, because the way they are asking it is showing
Implies
you
the societal narrative.
Yeah, oh, this is a societal expectation.
Right.
I'm not serving that. Does that mean I am wrong? I'm doing something wrong.
I'm doing it wrong. Right. Yeah, exactly.
I think that's so interesting.
Yeah. So I don't really have a like message here or like a conclusion to draw.
Well,
It's
do
just
we
something
ever?
that's on my mind. Fair. Very fair.
I mean, what's the title of the show? We just bring the
Yeah.
questions. We don't bring any of the answers.
Yeah. Well, then these are my questions. Like how do you feel like your experience of being a parent does or doesn't line up with the expectations of your role as a parent? And like what questions make your defenses go up, make you feel like something doesn't line up? I would love to hear from other people if they feel like this is a thing they've experienced.
Yeah. I was just thinking that we as humans so often like set ourselves up for failure by having expectations. Right?
Interesting. Tell me more about that.
Well, it already, we deprive ourselves of experiencing to the fullest, I think, by going in with an expectation. So to anything. Because then the filters, the glasses that I have on, don't allow me to see everything. I'm programming my I don't have this in English. Is it the neocortex? for something specific, which means that I'm missing everything else.
I hear what you're saying, and I think there's a lot of value in trying to open ourselves up to experiences outside of our expectations. Definitely. I also think it's a balance because we're always going to have glasses on.
Yeah.
We're always going to have the perspective that we are seeing from. So
it helps us to navigate. We need those glasses because if we had to process all the information, we wouldn't be able to function. So that's a very useful thing that our brain does there. We need it to survive. Yeah. I just find it very valuable to be aware of that. In certain situations.
Yeah. And especially when you're going through something for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's a big thing and there's a lot of pressure on it and there's a lot of I don't know, when it feels really important.
Yeah.
Recognizing that you come preloaded with expectations either from your own experience or from the culture that you live in or from your circle of friends or whatever that are going to impact what you expect to experience and then therefore how you react to and see and value the experience that you end up having. Yeah. And so it still takes active work for me to remember and decide and believe that how I feel about my baby is valuable and enough. Mm-hmm. And there's probably more to it than that, rather than just this one relationship and this one experience, but it takes work to process expectations that don't end up as a reality.
Yeah.
It's worthwhile work, though. Because I think if I just let it be a fear that I had that I ignored or that I, didn't talk about or didn't look at, it would be a lot more consuming. It would be a lot more overwhelming. And I know when I do go through that work of thinking about it and really checking in with myself and, thinking about how I feel about my tiny human, it's obvious to me that I'm good.
Yeah.
And the more often I do it, the shorter that lead time is. Between when I encounter something that makes me feel not enough and when I recognize that I don't know that's not I don't know that that's not true.
Yeah.
So, but obviously, as my struggling through the tears for the past 20 minutes will show you, it's something that's still happening.
Yeah.
But yeah. So let me know if you have experienced this kind of a thing.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah. I'll keep you updated if I have any inspiration. And on that note, I'm going to go cuddle my tiny human who just got up from his nap.
Oh, yay.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll be curious to see if anyone wants to share thoughts on that in the comments. Yeah. If you don't already, please come connect to us on Instagram.
Yeah.
Leave us a comment if you have anything.
Or you can shoot us a message too if you don't want it to be public.
Yes, absolutely. Yep, of course. You can send us a message too. We'd like to connect. Share this episode if this reminded you of someone, if you feel like this is valuable to someone, because it's so helpful to hear that we're not alone. Because I think this is a perfect example of what Megan just shared. Things like this make us feel so alone. Like, this seems to be what everyone is experiencing and what everyone is expecting, and I'm having a different experience. It's so helpful to see and hear, read, whatever, from other people that are having a similar experience that doesn't match the general narrative.
Yeah. I know that I don't have a lot of people in my life that are parents, so it was really nice or a lot of, peers and friends that are parents. It was nice to talk to the couple of people that I could about this and recognize that I wasn't alone and I wasn't crazy and I wasn't doing it wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Just another shade of normal.
Just another shade of normal. Just being a mom.
Yeah.
Still weird to be a mom. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And till next week.
Yeah. I'll talk to you next week.
Bye.